Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the Jarred Up podcast, where we welcome Louisa, the CEO and stylist from Sheffield's Freshman's Vintage Store. We talk all things fashion, from her early years travelling Europe, receiving a CV from Alex Turner, and her collaborations with emerging talents, both local and across the country. Enjoy!
Hey!
Hi.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
There,
Can you
there.
hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
Hey!
you. Live from the shop.
Live from the shop, and it's absolutely freezing. See, my hands are blue.
Oh,
So cold in here today.
How
How are you both?
Pretty good. Not too
Yeah?
bad. Thank you. Yeah. Just been keeping on, I guess. Keeping on. Keep keeping on. Yeah.
That's all we can do.
Yeah, we've just been
Keep
doing
on
these
keeping
podcasts
on.
to keep us amused. You know what I mean? You're our source of entertainment. Yeah.
That's great. I definitely am that.
Absolutely. I hope you got all the jokes queued up and all that.
Oh God. No pressure.
Yeah, this is you're doing a stand up. We're live streaming it to all our followers. Did we not mention?
I really hope not.
How's things down at the shop?
All right, it's been a bit manic today, to be honest. I've just brought in a big delivery, which is nice. Had a few customers like pick some things up, and just trying to keep going. Really,
Yeah.
just keeping. You've got to, haven't you?
Yeah. How's it been with the whole doing it? Obviously, in a lockdown. How's it been with like customer orders and curbside pickups?
It's slow.
Slow.
But you don't want it to be fast, if I'm honest.
Right.
Because when you're in a pandemic situation and you feel as though you are at the forefront of it, if you know what I mean, sort of being out and exposed to it by coming into store, you don't want it to be too busy just yet until the plan sort of falls into place.
True.
You want that to build slowly so that you can get your head around it personally.
And you want that
what I mean?
consistency as well, as opposed to just
Yeah.
having like really busy at the start and then just losing all the business. You want it to be
Yeah.
relatively consistent.
As long as I can keep talking to customers, that's all I actually ever want from a lockdown situation, is to keep connected to everybody that comes in store.
Yeah.
I'm not really bothered about the sales too much. I know that sounds really bad, and maybe I shouldn't say that out loud, but it definitely is. That's my main focus, is just to keep that connection with everybody that's going to come back.
Absolutely.
Once we reopened again.
You definitely get that across as well on your Instagram. I think you did
Yeah,
that.
I want
You
to
did
be
a poll.
personal.
Did a poll where it's
Yeah.
like we asked the customers what were their favorite aspects of the store, and about 80% of them were said you.
Shit. No pressure.
No, that's great though, and I think most people I talk to about the store, it's just the customer service is incredible. It's great. You know everyone that walks through that door.
Yeah, just about. Yeah, and it's brilliant to sort of learn more about people as you go along as well, and become a little bit more, finding more about the person that does walk through your door, rather than everybody knows who I am, but I don't know who you guys are, and it's nice to know more about what you do.
Who's the most interesting character you've had come in? Who's come in that you got to know, besides us, obviously.
God, I don't know. There's a lot of characters. There's a hell of a lot in the vintage world. There's so many characters. I've met people that are celebrities. Red Adam Ant being in store. He was quite an interesting character. You meet like you. I don't know. It's very hard to sort of explain like who's the best person, because I'm becoming friends with a hell of a lot of you. And I find you all fascinating and interesting, and you like tick different boxes for me in my own personality, if you know what I mean, and inspire me to like sort of be who I am still, if you know what I mean. Because I've been criticised for it, I suppose, in the past by being a bit too friendly and, a bit too open with people. But
really,
I think, yeah.
And what was why?
I've come from the rule of thumb before the internet. So my basic training and everything was all about the customer and learning about it. I've been in retail since I was 17. So like that's about 3 million years ago. Do you know what I mean?
No,
it's like
it was 2 years ago.
It was black and white. There was penny farthings. That's what it feels like. So I think people aren't used to my way because I've been trained in an old school way, I suppose, and it's been I don't know, criticised along the way that I'm a little bit too much for people. But that's just the way that I do things, if you know what I mean.
Well,
I like to be personable.
Yeah, I think the thing that's like brought us back to the store, and I reckon a lot of people, is that social aspect and like that social hub that like Freshman's creates. And I mean, especially with this podcast we've been doing, we're talking to a lot of different people that like in Sheffield and surrounding areas create that sense of community. Like we spoke to Taz, who used to work at Pitch House, and he was talking about Soyo Live and how he would have events, and it was half about the music, but the same people will come back every week and you'd see them again and again. And I think Freshman's is definitely like that. Like you go in and you feel that you may see some customers that you see there before. I mean, you guys are obviously always there, but you feel like, you might buy some stuff, but you also have a good little natter. You know, I think that's nice to have.
It's really important. And I think especially more so now we're going through what we're going through, because we can quite easily feel lonely, you know, in this pandemic and everything and lockdown situations. And like I said, this kind of industry brings in characters. So if you don't get to know that character, you're not doing what you're meant to be doing. This is not a shop. This is a community for people that want to buy into this way of life. It isn't just a trend. It's like literally a way of life, and people think slightly different that buy into this. And they're the customers that I want to have, and that's what I do have, and I'm blessed by that. It's brilliant. It really is.
It makes sense that you would learn about your customers as well, because I mean, like, if you're getting a certain type of customer dressed a certain way from a certain background, you might go, right, well, I'm going to get in a few more clothes that when they come in and be like, oh, I reckon you'll like this, you know. And that's that's the whole point of customer service, really, isn't it? That's why you got it. It helps to be friendly.
It's why I keep buying so many clothes.
It does,
Louisa's got stuff ready for me. Putting stuff aside.
I've got stuff ready for you, and I keep on wanting to push you into them leopard print pants. You know what I mean? Definitely
that's a way
having a pair of them. I've got some knitters on hand ready to make tank tops and everything, so that's going to be coming soon. So that's all good. But I just feel as though it's you're coming into my house. This is what it is, and like
that's definitely what it feels like.
And I want it to feel like that. And then how do you grow your business if you've got people coming into your house? How do you make it become a brand and you know sort of go bigger and stuff? You know, I've just had a look on the Google reports, and 21,000 people viewed the shop on Google Maps in December.
Bloody hell.
Wow.
Now that's a lot of people. Like beginning of lockdown, we had 11,000 people looking for us. So we've doubled it during this like pandemic bit.
Why do you think that is?
I think we've suddenly had a face on Instagram, and I think the Instagram's kind of changing. We've gone from probably only having about 2,000 followers to nearly 5, and that's not a lot compared to others, but it's very live and it's very active, and there's a lot.
That's the important bit is the interaction, the amount of people that interact with the post. I think what you do is so good with the customers. That's why I don't get when you said that you've been criticised for it, because it's grown. It's made it grow. And you won Best Independent Retailer in 2019 for Exposed Awards.
Yeah.
And I obviously the clothes you have is great. I think just your general quality is amazing. But I think it's got to be the customer service is what set you apart.
I would like to think so, to be honest. I mean, we've got a lot of like competition, as you would think, and I think where we're going into a point where we are going to get people being negative towards us because we are doing all right. And unfortunately, other business owners don't share that, like, I'll hold your hand on this, do you know what I mean? Or pat you on the back and say success. You know, we don't have that community within the other stores as well, which is sad, really, because a lot of them I've known prior to being in this job. You know, and taking over this business.
I do actually think that's something that, not to badmouth Sheffield in general, but we could generally improve on. Like, I feel like sometimes it can, you see it in the music industry sometimes, well, just kind of music community in Sheffield as well, is that some people are too quick to
make everything competitive rather than trying to work together and like just communicate with each other. And as you say, it may be the same in your industry as well. I would say not to badmouth anyone, but sometimes it can feel that way when people do make it overtly competitive, you know.
Sadly, it's a Sheffield thing. It's always been the case. I used to work in Leeds. I've worked in Leeds and Manchester.
All right.
And neither of those places did I feel that same thing that I feel in Sheffield. And I always said to myself as a young girl, if I ever had my own business, it wouldn't be in Sheffield. And that is pretty bad, because that's obviously where I'm at right now. But, you know, I know the people a little bit more, obviously, than if I set up somewhere else. But, you know, they're difficult type of people. They don't like success. They're funny. Sheffield folk don't like success. They would rather see you struggling and on your arse than they would actually celebrating that.
Where Sheffield has its negatives, it could be very easily flipped to positives. I think the reason that is, in my opinion, is because, as we always say, it's the biggest village in the country and whatnot. And like, I think because everyone's so tight together in that city centre, is that it's quite hard for little communities and like subcultures and that to pop up, because everyone knows everyone. So you can't have these little groups like breaking off. But that can also work to its advantage, because if that big community comes together rather than having these little ones, then you're onto a winner. And imagine if every band or artist or poet or a retailer popped up and everyone just leapt on it and supported. That would definitely be a positive for the city.
Definitely. I think Sheffield, it's got something very special though, Sheffield, and it always has done. I mean, like I said, I've travelled and I've lived in different countries. I've done all sorts of different things in my previous life, let's say. But, you know, Sheffield is home and people are really nice. It's just when you're in business or when you're doing your band stuff and when you're trying to sort of push through, you're going to get them kind of people with that kind of animosity. And I think that's just the way it is, I think, once you know. But then you know that you're succeeding, because as soon as they start being like that, then that is when you know you've hit a nail. Do you know what I mean?
I think also that's partly why we started the podcast and the Arts Lab, was to try and make people recognise that like it shouldn't have to be that way, and like hopefully by hearing us speak like that, people don't want to go, I don't want to be that animosity competitive arsehole, you know what I mean? Like I want to be that. I want to be that person that actually works with people.
Yeah, and when we can come together, we actually will come together, and we come together with no attitude or anything. Everybody's just as one. We're all on the same path. We're all wanting to do well for ourselves. We all want to just crack on. We just don't want anybody to be funny about what we really truly believe we want to do. And I think that's how it should be. Like, what you're setting up is great. Do you know what I mean? I think that obviously we've spoke before, I'd like it to come together within the shop as well, because then I think that'll bounce off customers that I have, people that you know. I think things can come together, and that's something that I'm still interested in doing.
Yeah, for sure. We we nearly got something sorted out, didn't we? And then
exactly. And just about that far away as usual, and then COVID.
and then boom, COVID.
You can't plan, can you? You can't plan for this. This is a weird one. You know, it's very hard for creative people to not have a plan and not to want to plan your year ahead, because it's all about different points, isn't it? When you're creative, to pass through it and to get to that point, and I'm going to put my album together. Or for me, it's like, well, is the festivals going to be happening? Do you know, so that I can buy towards that and gear everything towards it. We can't plan it, can we? This year, we can't do it. So it takes a lot away from creative people, doesn't it, really? I think it does anyway.
Yeah, I mean, creative people are notoriously pretty bad planners. So that kind of helps. It's like when people were asking, like, oh, what have you had to cancel? I'm like, everything. Our life is like as unpredictable as it gets anyway. Do you know what I mean? Like, so anything could be cancelled just as it is with the pandemic. But it's definitely stunted growth in a few different things, but we just have to get around it like we have done for the last year, you know.
But you know, it can also inspire, can't it, as well? Like, it gives you time to think, it gives
a hell of a lot of time to think.
Through. Yeah. But if you flip it, then it can be positive, can't it?
Yeah.
I think so.
I think was it me and Dave were just talking before we spoke to you. We were talking about the first time we ever came to Freshman's.
I remember it.
It was actually when we were down south, and then we came up and met John McClure, and then he was just like, being John McClure, he was just like, "This is the bollocks. This is the place to be. Like, this has been around for ages. Blah blah blah."
Yes.
And he took us in there, and like, yeah, it was. I vaguely remember it. It seemed like so long ago. Me and Dave were like, "Wait, was Louisa there?" Like, I don't know. It's all such like a mesh into one, because we were just getting shown around all the different places in Sheffield, and yeah, and then he gave the whole story about like, well, Alex Turner used to work here, but he was too.
Or no, didn't he? I think he applied. I think he said he tried to apply.
He was too shy.
I've got his CV.
No, you have.
Yeah, I've got it. I'm meant to be framing it. That's one of the things that I'm meant to do, because he came in store, didn't he, last year?
I was going to ask you about
brought
that.
His girlfriend in, and I said, I've still got your CV. You know, do you want to reapply? Just, you know, if you I'll accept your application if so. And yeah, we are really steeped in musical history because we've been around for a long time. Because I started working in Freshman's when I was 19. And I was the buyer and the manageress when it had just opened in 95, 96.
Oh, right.
So I'd gone to work for Paul. He was the old owner of the shop, and I worked for him. It was brilliant. And then I went off and did my thing. But in that time frame that I was there for, I met Jarvis Cocker. You know, all the bands that were literally in Sheffield at that time. Had come into store because we were the only vintage shop that there was.
Wicked.
And it was absolutely amazing what it looked like. It was upstairs in the forum at the back. So where all the snooker and pool tables are upstairs.
Oh, wicked, really?
That was open plan. It had a skate shop in there. It had like PVC sort of like gate crasher kind of club like thing. It had a head shop selling all the bongs and everything. And then you go through this archway, and that's where Freshman's was. And it was like the entire back of the shop. So probably the size of this shop, but upstairs. And it had got a psychedelic floor. It was fucking the dog's bollocks. It was so good. It was such a great thing that he created such a long time ago. And we'd get everybody coming in, like everybody. And it was such a great job as well, because I'd do like house clearances with people, like go around to people's houses looking through the wardrobes. I'd be in old mills looking through loads and loads of rags and that, and picking out things and finding Bieber suits and like all sorts of gems, you know, just in these sacks. And it's a dirty work. It's not glamorous, but it was just a fascinating industry to be in. And then I went off and did my work, and I became a buyer in Leeds. I was a high-end buyer. So I was getting shipped off to Milan and Paris and London. I'd done all the fashion weeks. I've been photographed for Vogue, at catwalk shows and stuff that I was doing. I found brands and brought them from different countries. I did that, worked in Leeds for 5 years, lived over there, and then came back to help Paul out because he'd been diagnosed as having cancer. And the business was getting to a point where it was a little bit tricky, let's say, for him to keep the energy up of it. So I came and worked in part-time for him, and then he said he was going to retire. So I decided that I weren't going to let Freshman's go to anyone else, and I ended up buying it, which, as a 19-year-old girl, would never ever have thought that would be where I would end up, especially with the journey that I'd had in between it. And obviously I had children. I had 2 boys as well in between that time. You know, to come back and then suddenly own the shop that you worked in as a young girl, it was just, honestly, I could pinch myself sometimes. I never would have thought it. So Freshman's has been in my life all the way through my life. I've never known any different. So it's amazing, really, that I'm the owner of it.
Back when
That's so cool. That's so cool.
Back when
good.
Back when it started, how many other vintage shops were there in Sheffield at the time?
No.
Just
one. That was what I was thinking. I thought that would be the answer, but
you'd have charity shops still, obviously, but you wouldn't have, if they were a vintage shop, they were more like an antique shop.
Yeah, exactly.
So they'd be more antiques with a little bit of clothing in there.
You guys were purely clothing.
Changed. Yeah. The industry's completely changed. Completely.
It's interesting.
It's much more commercial than it ever used to be. It's much more about fashion. It's in parts, it looks like it's more like fast fashion. And I don't like that direction at all. But you have to keep up. The trends are changing. Suddenly it's about trends. It's not about how people dress. And I have to tap into it because that's part of it. But the rest of it, I don't really like the way that it's going. I always said that once it became commercial and you've got advertisements on TV or you've got your high street stores wanting to look vintage, then that's a danger zone for the vintage shops.
That's an interesting point, because obviously, as a fashion expert, I've always kept a keen eye on what's on the rails in the commercial world.
I know, you know. You can put time frames on each one of the items that are on the rails as well. The great skill of yours.
I do remember, because when I was younger, I wasn't cool enough to shop in somewhere like Freshman's. I was always hanging about in Top Man or some terrible H&M branch shop or whatever. And I remember that time when like Top Man in particular used to do like the obvious terrible clothing, skinny jeans, rips and all that. And then there was this moment where they put in that vintage aisle.
A vintage rail, just that one rail.
Yeah, do you remember? And they do all the same stuff. Kind of similar to like what any vintage shop would do, really. You know, like the wax jackets, the like Adidas windbreakers and all that. And they were like 80 quid.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I was like,
totally wrong.
I expected them to try and be dicks and undercut you. That's what I would have thought they'd try and do, you know.
They knew they didn't need to because people weren't going to not where we were. We were in Guildford.
Yeah,
there weren't a vintage shop there. I mean, coffee shops and cobble streets. That's all that was.
But it's completely bizarre, isn't it? Because you're like, why would you go to what? And people bought that like for like 80 quid, and you're like, there's a shop down the road you can get.
I know that there's such a naivety to it. It's dead man's clothing. It's all this. Oh, it smells. Oh, wonder what happened to it. That person that wore it. You know, well, who's the fool? Who's the fool then? Do you know, like you go and buy that for £80 when you could have bought it for 20. You know, to an independent business that's actually doing it with a bit of heart in it, not just buying it because they think that that's the trend to do, to buy into like sustainable vintage clothing. You know, it shoots everybody in the foot. I mean, it's too exposed anyway at the moment. It's like the kilo sales, all of it. It's just, I hate it. I absolutely hate it.
What I will say though, what you are doing, which you brought it back down to just the people and the clothes and like the identity, is you're like collaborating with customers.
Yeah.
And so you did what Jake Smith.
Smithers,
So I can't believe I forgot his name. You did a collaboration with him, and you did a painting on the back of a.
What is that one? I saw it, and you told me what it was.
It's like a cowboy on a horse, and his art is incredible.
What does it say?
He does cowboys for a living. That's where he is as an illustrator.
He's
what's the one that you've got on like a bag? It might be a bag or a t-shirt. It says something on it.
Oh no, that's Good Morning Keith.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Man.
But
that's another good thing though. It's collaboration in a sense, but it's a brand that's not been in the UK, and it's now in the UK because I connected with him. And the first conversation that I had with him when I emailed him was, he said someone's just been into our store in France saying that they've been in Freshman's and they love it.
Oh, no way, really?
Oh, and I'm like, you are?
Mad.
And it's really nice to hear. And that was the connection. And then obviously we got talking, and then they've allowed us to have the t-shirts, and it is something that will continue. Although it's been a little bit slow because it's these changes to Freshman's that when something's been around for such a long time, they expect it to stay the same always.
Yeah.
And I'm wanting to make these changes and push it into this next
Which I think you are doing really well. Like I said, with your collaborations with customers, like who have you other than Jake? Like who else have you had, or are you planning to have?
We've got Danielle. She did the ones with the goth drawer. So she did the Hellraiser on the jacket, the leather jacket, and the chains and the leather trousers. She's a really good artist down in London. She sells her coats for like £700. So she's one of Kieran's friends. So we work with her. And then this Face, she makes her own language. She's the one that's done the workwear. And she's got all the different hieroglyphics. It's like hieroglyphics really on the actual fabric. So I'll be working with her a little bit more. And then who else we got? We've got a new guy, Reese, and his artwork's amazing. He's like quite anarchy, so he's going to be doing some stuff with us. And then I'm getting a pool of knitters and crocheters and dressmakers, and there's a brand coming, and I'm excited about that.
The list is endless,
and that's great. That's so good.
That's just going to reminisce on things that I can't get hold of. That's going to go back to maybe the 620 Soul Train that I used to watch with my mum and dad when I was younger, and it's all going to be like proper groovy kind of shit that you can't get hold of anymore. But they're look quite staged, but then also quite expressive if you want to buy into it. So yeah, that's the next thing really. So hopefully that'll go into plan.
Sounds great.
So that's great.
So good.
And then there's fashion shows, and there's all things that I want to do, and obviously the releasing of us all being able to be together, wanting to do like a 3-day event, which is interactive with art, models, all them kind of things, bands, everything all connected to one. So it's just going to be an event that I'm going to try and get to take place this year, if not next year.
Yeah, that'd be so good.
So that we can all
say
come
it again.
together.
It was annoying, wasn't it? Because we when I came in speaking to you, we had a bit of a breakthrough of what we could do in the store, didn't we?
Yep.
We have this, that, and this, that. And we were like, sweet.
I know, it's shocking. It's shocking. I had a gig planned in March, and he's obviously had to cancel it. Cassie Lowry, he's had to cancel that. But he booked in to be in here, and that is just amazing to sort of see it. I want to see it multifunctional. I want to see different things happen in it. I don't just want to sell clothes from it. I want to be able to do quite a lot of things. I'm a bit too ambitious sometimes, but there's nothing wrong with that, is there? There's plenty of time to get your ambition out of the way. Do you know what I mean? So,
and I think it's
47 next. It's 20 odd years to get to this point.
I think it's those multifunctional places that create that community aspect we were talking about a lot better than other places. If you're just a closed store, okay, that's one thing, but like if you can branch out into the realms of music and, like you say, other things and fashion shows and whatnot, it's like it's just, there's nothing not good about it.
I think Louisa's got a head start though, because I think she's got that community. I see so many different people in your store. I feel like you have you think you've got that community already. I think it's just if you then made it into that multifunctional thing, you're just pushing the boundaries of what it could be. Because there are so many different people I see in that store that kind of push their own boundaries. I remember changing. I was trying something that you picked out that was probably quite questionable for me. But I remember hearing, it's like, it was in the next one. I was like, I'd never usually wear this, but I'm going to get it.
Yeah.
And that you probably wouldn't hear, to be honest, in any other store, like closed store, especially like a normal chain one. And that was really cool to hear. And it was just the different people you see.
Well, like I've popped in and like the other day I saw Amelia and I was like, oh, you model for this place, don't you? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, I used to work with you. And you're like, joining the dots. And I've done it before when you post people outside your shop. And I missed you. I'm like, I was literally there half hour ago. I've just missed you. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's that kind of thing. And
it is. People say, I'll meet you in Freshman's, shall I? And I'm like, yeah, you can meet in Freshman's, that sound. Do you know what I mean? And it becomes like, I'm like earwigging on the conversations about what they've been up to and who they've been doing this to and that and to and all that. And I'm like, yeah, sound, I like that.
You'll be getting a coffee machine in next.
Yeah. I bet you eavesdrop.
There are a lot of things about people.
Yeah.
I'd do so much eavesdropping if I was you.
Oh no, Confessions of the Fitting Room, eh? Maybe that's the next thing I'll do. Some sort of like book, a spoof book about my confessions and things I've seen and heard.
I can picture you just like
I'll tell you a funny story there.
Go on then.
There's one, when I was working in Leeds, there was a guy, because obviously there's a bird cage, isn't it, there where the drag queens go.
Right.
And he used to come in with this guy used to come into this it's quite a posh shop. It was called Strand. And we used to sell Gucci, Prada, all that, YSL, all that kind of stuff. And he used to come in with a little bag, and all the other girls would disappear. And I'd be like, how would you like me to help you? And he's like, I'd like a dress, blah, blah, blah. So he went into the fitting room. I got him a beautiful shot silk pink Yves Saint Laurent dress. Looked gorgeous. So I left him to it, left him trying on. And so I pulled back the curtain and I says, how are you getting on? And he's going, oh, I love it. He got tights on, he'd got his heels on, he'd got his wig on, and he'd got a hard on.
That's not where I thought you were going to go with that.
A little bit tight round the midriff, isn't it? But it is at the moment anyway. And he's going, oh yes, it is. It is a very, very nice dress.
I can tell you've told this story a couple of times because the comical timing was spot on there.
Yeah. That's not the ending I thought.
I love this story. But he became a really good customer because we had the laugh. We were being honest about what obviously had gone on. He bought the dress, which was nearly £1,000.
Well, I should think so.
and we stayed in contact. And every time he used to come in, he used to have to walk up the stairs with his little bag. He'd always ask for me. And that was a really cool element of it. So that's one of my confessions that I have let out now.
Oh, brilliant.
It's really bizarre how sometimes you can connect with people, isn't it? You know what I mean? So sometimes one little thing just needs to happen and
that's all you need.
You get past that.
Yeah, it's finding that common ground with everybody that comes in, isn't it? You know, everybody's so different. But you can still be a friend with somebody, can't you? Even if they're completely different to yourself. You just find that one little thread of information about them that you think, I get you, I understand you, I like you. And then you build on that. And then I think that's how it goes, isn't it?
I think sometimes too many people are interested in finding differences between them and others rather than similarities. Yes. Do you know what I mean?
Find the common ground always.
Exactly.
We're all the same, really. We've just had different things attached to us that we like and as dislikes. But the core of ourselves only ever wants to be liked, don't they? Really?
I completely agree.
Do you know what I mean? That's all we want, really.
All right, Louisa. Top 3 fashion icons.
Oh shit! I knew you were going to ask me a question like this. I have no idea.
On the spot. Go.
On the spot.
Go. I'm on the clock. I absolutely loved Madonna when I was growing up. She sort of changed my perception of being a female. So I used to follow her quite avidly. And although some of the things that she wore perhaps weren't that iconic, I did like the way she pushed boundaries. Kate Moss, definitely was a bit of a muse of mine. I used to try and copy her quite a lot. And if I ever showed you any old photographs from the 90s when I used to go clubbing, I did wear that see-through iridescent dress. I did wear like suits with no top on underneath. I did think that I was something a bit more than what I were. But, you know, I did follow women that was very strong, if you know what I mean. Audrey Hepburn for that kind of thing. Grace Kelly, the soul singers. I used to love how they dressed. Tina Turner used to dress amazing when she was younger. I thought she was sound. So there's millions for different reasons. Marilyn Monroe for the classics, Hourglass kind of film, kind of siren. Anyone like that, I think, was my sort of favourite. But I went into fashion right from being a child. When I was about 5 years old, I used to pose for photographs. I used to like get a t-shirt and cut it up and then draw on it or do all these things. I once designed a shop in my art GCSE, and I called it Remake. I called it Remake in like graphic sort of like tagging sort of writing, and it was all a product that was made out of recycled fabrics. And my mum still got my project.
Oh,
and
wicked.
I did that at school. So obviously I was always wanting to do fashion and things like that, really.
Oh, wicked. So it was a very early passion. I grew into an interest in fashion quite not late, but I think it's like we had the same thing where we went to college and we were kind of just wearing like the skinny jeans, the denim jacket. Well, I was, and then we kind of, I think it went hand in hand with music for us. I think,
yeah,
got into the music, got into a band, and then I think the fashion aspect just came hand in hand with it.
I think when you're I don't know, when you're on stage or whatever, I can't even explain it without sounding a bit egotistical, but in a sense you have to have an ego. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think anything creatively that you do, like that is effectively when you're expressing a part of your ego, maybe even some arrogance, you know. And I think if you don't dress to match it, it's kind of it can look strange. I think when you look at all the biggest musicians that ever mentioned Madonna as well, the fashion always goes hand in hand with it. I mean, like you look at Bowie, you look at Prince, like you always think of their outfits as well as their music. You know, it's like
it's an extension, isn't it? Extension of your personality.
Yeah.
I remember the switch. I remember the switch.
Yeah, and also the different elements of your personality, because nobody's just got one flat personality. So you've got different layers. So you can be all these different types of people, and it's just another element of your personality. That's all it actually is. It's not that you're being fake or you're dressing for a certain way for a certain reason. You are just expressing a different element of yourself. And I think as long as you do that, that's it's creating a vibe that's just personal to you. So I think it is. Fashion, art, music are all one, and I think without the other, then it's just lost. So I think it really morphs itself as one big thing. So like you're into music, but you're also into fashion. You know, you're into creating, you're into art, and it all morphs into this one character for yourself. And I think it's all hand in hand, all of it.
It's weird actually. I wrote about this recently about different subcultures and how they've dressed throughout the eras. And sometimes you'll get like your parents or someone older, like basically going like, oh, he looks like that. He looks like a goth. He looks like a punk. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because there was maybe a period in time where you could just be like, right, he's that, she's that, they're that, you know. But now you kind of see people dressing like a complete like amalgamation of like so many different like subcultures all in one. And you kind of, it's not so obvious to put people in boxes as it once was. No. And it's an interesting thought, you know. I've always
become more fluid. It's become more fluid.
It's just like the evolution of fashion in a sense.
It's amazing. It's so good to see. It's so good to see that people are still wanting to create a new look out of something that the trouble is with the vintage world, it can't go any further. It's caught itself up now. We're into 2000s in the vintage world now. So we can't go any further at the moment. So now it's about melting pots and sort of putting everything together. So it's a bit tricky. That's my lift. That's me.
Oh, is it? Oh, I think that would be
actually me. That's my lift. I think it's here. My lift's here.
Well, I think that's the perfect place to end it then.
I'm going to have to go.
No, thank you, Louisa.
It's all right. We've got everything.
That was perfect.
It's been lovely speaking
to you. Is that all right?
Yeah, perfect.
Lovely job. For hours, so I'll probably bore the tits off you, but you know, I'm always here if you want to have another chat or whatever.
Awesome.
You know that. All right.
Cheers, Louisa.
I'll see you soon. I don't even know how to switch this off, but
I think it's the bottom right. It should be in the red button. Just the red button.
Yeah.
That one.
See you later.
Adios.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.